Hi guys, this is Nightmare3464. I'm gonna continue reading Stay With Me Chapter 9. Yay, Chapter 9! Finally! We're almost there to the big choice when Serena has to choose between Jeff, Eyeless Jack, and Masky. I wonder who will Serena choose. I hope you guys enjoy this chapter. Serena's point of view. I stared into nothing, eyeless sockets with dark gray face staring back at me. Two abyss-like holes that seemed sad watching me. Lonely feeling hitting in them. I wasn't disgusted or scared, but wondered about what was I seeing. Eyeless Jack. I thought it was the same nickname. It was a nickname. He got it from his past or something, but I never imagined he would actually be eyeless. I stared at Jack, wondering, what was I thinking? Great. I think I scared her. Damn my face, he yelled at himself. His eyebrows formed in a sad way. He lowered his head and closed his eyelids. I didn't need to see the holes anymore. I'm sorry, Serena. I knew I shouldn't have showed you. I knew it would scare you, so I'm sorry, he muttered in a shy voice, shaking as scared of what I was going to say about this. I'm a monster. I know I don't deserve to keep you here, but when I care so much about something, I never want to lose it. I keep staring. He was really different than any other murderers. He was more quiet and seemed more self-conscious about what he thought of himself. I felt bad for him. You're not a monster. He looked up at me slowly, keeping his eye sockets. I keep staring at the eye sockets, a bit surprised in his storm gray face. I held confidence and looked as a small smile pressed against my lip. You don't seem like a monster to me. You seem... Sure, you're a murderer, or murder people, but you have some... And Jeff and Ben, Slenderman smiled at... None of you are monsters. You're never monsters to me. He seemed calmer with my words, but still held a shy look as he watched me. I smiled, wondering, seeing his lips pressing slowly, growing slightly and more happier. I was scared of all of you when I first met you, but now I realize you're all alone. You're lonely being without anyone to love. I walked up to him and pulled him into a hug. Jack seemed taken back by this. He never had anyone hug him, more or less show him kindness at all. Why I was being so nice to him though? He probably kidnapped me to show me his face. I shouldn't be afraid of him. So Lee, the 18-year-old, brought his arms up and wrapped them around my small figure. He brought his head down and sniffed my scent. I smiled, knowing he was relaxed. I was heartless. I didn't want someone to be lonely. I slowly pulled away and stood before him. He seemed hesitant to let me go, but soon dropped his arms to his side. I freezed of hearing a large growling sound in my stomach. I hadn't eaten for hours. Jack noticed my stomach crying for food. He smiled completely as he slipped his mask off and walked over and set it on the table next to the bed. Stepping back over to me, his smile increases. He was happy. I wasn't giggling at my missing body part. Come on. We have a cafeteria. I nodded and followed him up the room. We both headed downstairs led into a room across a messy lobby. It was a big hospital, of course. It was a hospital, but we stopped in front of two double doors, once with twisted handles and blood everywhere. Jack pushed them both open and led me formally in. The cafeteria looked like the rest of the healthy factory. Bloody and gloomy, Jack returned to me and smiled and still placed upon his face. Choose whatever you want to sit. I'll go make something. Nodding my head, he was off. I looked around, surprised the room. I decided to study the looking tables. I quickly found steady strong as I settled down. I looked around once. I was certainly coming through my thoughts as my long silver hair twisted in my shoulder finger. I definitely need a shower after this, I thought, feeling the dirt flaking my hair. The scent of something came across my nose. I breathed it in. The scent was eggs and made my stomach growl even more. It smelled delicious. I thought about it, all the food I had in my life, zoning out and barely hearing the clanking of noise of the kitchen door. I turned to him, and Jack was working, holding up 2 plates of what I looked to me like egg omelets. He placed one on the table in front of me, and he sat next to me with his. I grabbed the fork and placed it into the food and took one bite. It was delicious, almost as good as Jeff's cooking. The boy flashed into my mind as my heart suddenly broke. This is different than I'm usually used to, Jack laughed, taking a small bite into his. I looked at him. What are you used to? I asked curiously. Jack stopped cutting off another piece of his omelet and suddenly turned to me and looked at me. He held a look that I wasn't sure was quite, then looked away from me and suddenly gulped. It's better not to ask about that, he asked. I nodded as we both eating. My stomach enjoyed its yummy taste. Jack froze as I peeked at him, my mouth full of eggs and ham and cheese. He was watching the window. I looked at as well, swallowing what was in my mouth. The window was broken, but I could hear what sounded like footsteps and whispers of voices far away of the building. Listening closely, I was quickly grabbed, thrown over Jack's shoulders. I gasped, still haven't finished my meal, as he fast walked out of the cafeteria and upstairs. Jack, what is it? I asked as we rushed to his room. I was taken off his shoulders. I was gently placed on the floor as I pushed in towards his face. He bolted towards the table in the room and put on his mask. Suddenly backed over to the door. I cocked an eyebrow, seeing his hesitation. He turned and looked at me from behind the mask, and his head went low. Wait here. I'll be back soon. I have to get something for you to take care of something on the way. Okay, Serena, he said as he left the room, locking it from the outside. I looked around the room, staring at the window and at the door. A voice in my head saying, there's my exit. It was getting late, like around 10 p.m. I didn't want to spend the night here. Obviously, I have to go to the 2 beds and fell asleep. I woke up hearing the door open. The door of Jack's room being unlocked and open, hearing Jack walk into the room. Placing stuff on the table, coming closer to the bed, he smelled the blood, and then Jack laid down next to me. In about 4 minutes, he fell asleep, and turned out he was a deep sleeper. ever. Oh wow. I got off the bed and walked towards the window. I looked to see if anything was out there, but only seeing the trees in the darkness and something moving in the shadows. I thought I heard Jack wake up. I turned around to see if he did, but he was only turning his body to the other side, not facing the window, and surprisingly he was still asleep. I walked towards the door, quietly opening it. I turned to see if I woke Jack, but luck was on my side. If he was still asleep, I walked out of the room. I started to run down the hallways of the asylum, trying to find a way out. About 10 minutes of running through the asylum, I stopped at a room with padded floors and walls, and doors seemed to have a lock in the inside. To keep out of this room, "Serena!" I heard Jack yelling from his room. I quickly ran inside the room and locking the door, hoping that Jack would not find me. Hearing Jack run through the halls, hearing his footsteps starting coming closer and closer to the room, hearing him stop at the door. It sounded like he was jamming the lock, guessing he was trading with it. With nowhere to hide, he'll find me for sure. The jamming sounding quicker as I guess he was almost in. The door opened. Jack found me. "Serena, there you are. There you are. Why are you hiding from me?" he said as he pulled me into a hug. I tried to back away, but he held me in place. When Jack pulled away, then I turned around and looked at the door. "Jack, what is it?" I asked. "The monster has come for you," he muttered, then slamming the door. I blinked and wondered what he meant. I gasped and turned towards the door. I set my ears upon it to listen. His footsteps were running through the distance down the hall of the stairway. I looked around to see where the noise was coming from. I was facing as my heart skipped a beat when I saw Jeff, Ben, Smile, Rug, Hoodie, Masky running towards the factory, Slenderman teleporting. I smiled to see them all, especially Jeff. They were all running quickly. Ben stopped, causing the rest as well. He pointed as they turned to me. I could see Jeff in a changing smile grow wide and grinned. I had no idea it was that possible. I giggled at myself and smiled back at him. He lifted his hands away and cupped his hands around his mouth and called out to me. I could barely make out what he was yelling. "We're coming, Serena!" Butterflies buzzed around my stomach, missing the sound of his voice. I smiled, finally remembering there was another person in this hospital. Jack walked out and Jeff's eyes turned angry. Jeff, even without his eyelids, he glared at Jack. Now he wanted to run towards him and when wrangling his neck. Jack glared back and braced his sharp teeth. "You came sooner than expected, Jeffrey," Jack growled, finding the same urge to choke the blind black-haired boy. Jeff saying smile. "Well, you know, when you take the girl I care for, I was bound to come looking for her." Jack's hands formed into fists. "His girl? Hell no." "You're nothing but a monster who can't stop hurting her," Jack growled. Lowering his head, Ben rested with the conversation. "Hurting Serena? How the hell is Jeff hurting Serena?" Slenderman stepped up next to Jeff. Jack turned his glare to the faceless man. "Jeff has done nothing to hurt Serena, Jack. If anything, he has been protecting her. Jeff loves Serena, and I'm supposed that you back down before you get me angry as well." Jack's fists tightened. Soon Slenderman was now in a protective state for Jeff, or maybe Serena. It didn't matter to him. He wasn't going to lose Serena. This is my and Jeff's fight, Slenderman, and not any of yours. If Jeff wants Serena back," Jack looked to Jeff, "you will have to fight me for her." himself. Jeff began to shake in anger boiling his blood. Only thinking that it was beating in him, he heard his voice calling out. One thing that was hearing now is kill him. Jeff smiled intensely, his eyes lurid in the psycho look covering his braced white face. Slender, you and the rest get Serena. I'll handle him. Before any could answer, Jeff bolted towards Jack with the knives out and ready to stab the cannibal murderer. Jack, seeing Jeff run at him, dodging the other 18-year-old, tackling him, Jack set on Jeff, trying to hold the killer down. Jeff tried stabbing him, the eyeless male, slashing Jack's arms. Jack hissed as he stared and slashed Jeff across the face. Jeff groaned and held his arms back. His claws were holding the knives. Using the other hand to grab Jack's face, he urged enough strength to punch Jack's face and slamming him to the ground. Jeff sat on Jack now, lifting his knife. Jack, seeing the rage of the weapon, grabbing Jeff's arm before Jeff could stab him. He pushed him off, punched Jeff in the face, and branching off to the faceless man, now growling, pulling his arms from Jack and stabbing into Jack's arms. While Jack was still fighting his knife out with Jeff, turns out the attention back to the others. Masky, Ben, Smile, you three, get Serena. Slender, Hoodie, you help me hold Jack. He yelled at them. Jack, hearing these, he threatened his knife into his bleeding limb and now stabbing Jeff into the shoulder. And kicking him off, Jeff growled and yanked the knife out. Slender and Hoodie rushed towards him. Slender using his tentacles to push Jack back to the ground as Jack thrust around, and Hoodie is helping Jeff tend to his wounds. Masky and Ben and Smiles ran inside, hearing Jack's roar in anger. No, you can't take her. I won't lose her. You bastards. When I get out, that tentacle pulled his mask off and wrapping around his mouth, muffling him as he growled, as he threatened. Hoodie shook his head and thinking of the ridiculous thing that he and Masky had came to help. Wait, did Jeff send Masky in there? After hearing a scream about coming from the asylum, we headed inside. Heads turned to see Ben and Smile bolted in towards the front door, Smile growling while Ben still holding his stomach in pain as he panted. He turned to rest and strode to the others. Jeff stood and ran over with Hoodie and Slenderman behind them. Ben, where the hell is Masky and Serena? Jeff asked. Ben stood up in pain in his face. Masky took her, he explained, pointing the opposite direction of them. Sure enough, the figures were wearing a yellow hoodie and black pants, were carrying another screaming body on his shoulders. It was in the distant running. Jeff yelled as he stabbed his knife into a nearby tree. Damn it! Why the hell did I send Masky in there? He stabbed again. He vented his attention back to Eyeless Jack and stormed over to him. He looked at Slenderman and gave him a signal to let Jack free, and Tentacle disappeared. Jack jumped up and pushed past Jeff, only to be yanked back by the sleeve of his jacket. Hold it, Jack. Jeff barked. Jack stopped and spun to look at Jeff in anger and crossed his eyeless face. What, Jeff? Can't you see Serena has been taken by Masky? Jeff pulled his arm in anger, in the moment saying in a low, almost serious sound of voice, I know, which is why I'm asking for your help to get her back. The others watched confusedly. Jeff was willing to work with Jack, even though this guy took Serena. Well, they needed to know to go after Masky again, to get her, so they made a small alliance to work together for the time being to get her back. Well, ready to agree to this? Hoodie muttered. Ben nodded and shook. Yeah, But once they get Serena, then they'll be fighting will start again. The two 18-year-olds held a strange, more like glare down. Jeff hated the thought that he was working with Jack. He and Jack never gotten along now that they were fighting over Serena. It made their enemy ships sink rocket sky high. Well, if we get Serena back, Jeff can't compare much. After what he felt like forever, Jack nodded slowly. Fine. With that, he turned around and bolted past the others with Jeff on his heels. Jeff stopped and looked at the others, gave him a look, and then nodded them. Go get her, pal. Jeff returned a nod and started chasing after Jack. Two keeping pace and either getting tired in the hunt. When I found Masky, he was sitting still, silent in his throat. I swear. Jeff only had a thought of anger through his mind, though he was ready only to feel his mind when his beating heart of those three kids at 13, the day he snapped. Now he was having them again, all because of Serena, a girl that meant to be another victim. A girl that he kidnapped, a girl who stolen his sane heart, though of her face rushing into his mind. Memories of their past, of years since he took her. When they were cooking together, she will wrap baking powder onto his face, causing him to cough and chasing her around the kitchen. They definitely made a mess, which they left Ben clean. Good times that he hoped to be that would continue. Only they would be more than they are now. His thoughts stopped as he ran back to the killer ahead of him. Jeff shook his head as he long with his messy hair swinging a look at Jack. He cocked an eyebrow and looked ahead. Sitting up next to the other 18-year-old, Masky was facing them. Serena was missing from his shoulders. The girl was sitting against a trunk of a tree, hovering over all of them, confused. Jack smiled at me. I looked at him, then turned my eyes to Jeff. He held a worried look and frowned at me from my position I'm in. I smiled gracefully with my lips, causing Jeff's heart to melt. Jack and Masky looked from me to Jeff with jealousy. After her again, Jeff. And now you too, Jack. Man, this is getting insane, isn't it? Both of you, after my girl, Masky said cocky in a sarcastic tone, causing Jeff and Jack both to look at him, glaring. Your? Oh, Masky, I think you and Jeff are both confused. Serena is mine. You hear me? Mine! Jack was grinding his teeth. Masky lowered his eyelids in annoyance. Jeff stood quiet, keeping a glare going towards the edge. He shot his eyes back to me and Masky, shooting them back to Jack. How about we all settle this then? Masky yanked up two switchblades out of his pocket, ready to pursue in a fight. Once the other two boys attacked, Jack chugged his knife, holding it into a fist. Bring it on, Masky! Jeff smiled. It was an everlasting smile, aside his knife, getting ready to fight as well. But before he or Jack could attack, Masky yanked me off the ground and threw me over his shoulders and bolted away. Jeff growled along with Jack, and he ran towards Masky, and so did Jack, being faster than the three males, jumping towards and grabbing Masky's leg, causing the mask-wearing man to throw me and fall me, hitting to the ground with a thump. Jack quickly leaned over and the collapsed Masky and grabbed me before Jeff could have had a chance. He continued to run with me screaming in his arms. The scream broke his heart along with Masky's. He continued running with me screaming in his arms. Masky and Jack's hearts realized that it wasn't the scream for them, but for Jeff. As Masky got up, as his mask got up, as Jeff stumbled into him, causing them to both fall again. Jeff startled in the moment before getting up, is balancing himself again, and continued chasing after Jack. Raging his blood, Jeff chucked his knife like a ninja star, and throwing his knife, hitting Jack in the calf of his leg. The boy tripped in pain. I rolled off in his arms and quickly stood up. I looked from the injured Jack to Jeff, who was running fast. Jeff called out to me, "Serena, run, now!" I'm feeling for the other two boys at the moment. I nodded and quickly turned around and ran away from them all. I ran as fast as I could. While running, I could think about Taya, who did kill her. I began to cry and ran. I didn't see where I was going until I bumped into someone. It was Slenderman. I gave him a huge hug. Slenderman called Ben and Smile and Hoodie. "My dear child, why are you crying?" said Slenderman with a tone of a caring father. "It's just that the heart stabbed into a tree belonged to my friend Taya. I miss her. I miss her so much, and she died, and I never got to say goodbye." I cried once more as Slenderman came by to comfort me. "My dear child, don't worry about it. No, you still have your phone. You could still contact your dear friend Sam and meet her here in the woods. But she has to come here." I nodded and remembered Sam. "She is scared of everything, even the woods. What will she do if she sees Slenderman and the others?" "Serena, where are the boys?" he asked, angrily in his tone of his voice. I led them towards the boys. They were still fighting. Jack pulled the knife out from his leg and blinked towards Jeff, passing him. Quickly grabbing them, they were both fighting as they were tackled by Masky. Jeff fell to the ground. Jeff rolled in annoyance, fighting and getting up to get free from Jack's stabbing knife. Down to his black hair boy's head. Jeff dodged it quickly as he does that. With the next, hearing footsteps coming from afar, knowing who it was listening until they were about to pass into two fights. Muttering and rolling, Jack got up and pushed off Jeff into Masky, causing them to fall back, with a gray-skinned man on them. "Let me guess, this is all over you." I looked at him, and then he knows, yes. Ben shook his head, and Hoodie turned to where they were fighting instead. "We need to stop them!" But he was stopped by Slenderman by the shoulder. The masked man peered up to the faceless one, confused. Slenderman pinged ahead, and his blank face not telling his emotions. He was worried about all of them, but only one way to stop them. "Send Serena." All of them shot a distrusting look. "What?" Ben exclaimed and smiled wide. I was the only woman who was confused hearing Cinder's idea. Serena is the only one that could knock them out of their ideal senses. "Serena." Slenderman looked at me, and I started towards him, burning and wondering he was going to say. "Who do you want?" I was confused at first, but I understood for a moment. Does he mean love? "Do you care for Jeff, Masky, or Jack?" Serena's point of view. I was confused of what Slenderman asked me, but then I understood his question. "Child, who do you choose to love? Jeff, Jack, or Masky?" I froze, but my answer was soon realized. Jeff was on my mind. I remember the good times that we had with each other, knowing that he was always there to be protecting me ever since I met him. I looked up to the faceless man and stared before me. I suddenly spoke. "I choose Jeff. Jeff will never hurt me." Slenderman nodded and Ben smiled. Ben, Smile, and Hoodie and Slenderman and me were now pacing to hear the three teenage boys fighting. Nodding verbally and physically. I went up to them yelling, "Guys, stop fighting! I don't want this. Stop it now!" All of them were confused. All of them stopped and stood in confusion when I broke the silence and asked them, "Alright then, I have a question that's been bothering me ever since that organ has been dancing on the tree, which belongs to my friend Taya." I stared up in tears. Taya was killed, and why? I was about to cry when no one answered my question. Jeff spoke. "Serena, I will never, ever kill anyone that you love. You believe me, right?" I glanced at Jeff with sadness in my eyes. I stepped towards him to say, "Yes, I know I believe you." And I stood to Masky. I looked straight in his eyes as he did. "Masky, did you kill my friend Taya?" Then he shocked and confused. "No, Serena, I will never do anything like that to hurt you, especially you." Jeff began to get pissed, but I looked back at Jeff. He stood up to stay quiet. "Jack." I stood up and walked to Jack. "Jack, when I knew the disgusting bag he did in my dear friend." "Jack, did you kill my friend, Taya?" Then he looked at me dead in the eyes and nodded. "Yes, I did. I did it, and I could have kept you more safe if it wasn't for Jeff." "Serena, he's out to kill you." I didn't believe him, but I finally found out who killed my dear friend. I went to Jeff and hugged him, so that's why Jeff wouldn't have done that feeling again. I looked up to Jeff and asked, "Jeff, are you really going to kill me or hurt me?" I cried even more than the last time. "No, no, Serena, I'll never hurt you. Of course, I love you." And Jeff stood still, realizing what did just bursted out. I hugged him tighter as I said those 3 words as well. "I love you too, Jeff." And he hugged me back. Jack and Masky knew that I would never pick them, but instead I picked Jeff because he treated me right. Masky stood by Hoodie with sadness, and then he let up. I went up to Jack with hate, kicking him hard in the knee, causing him to fall down. "You sick liar, that's for Taya." Then Jeff pulled me back and set me down on the floor, crying into his chest. "My friend didn't deserve to die, Jeff. She didn't deserve it at all." I cried harder. Jeff was holding me closer, to give me a small rock, going back and forth. "Shh, Serena, it's okay. I'm here. I won't let you get hurt anymore." Jeff and I stood up, and Slenderman spoke. Well, I have to be elsewhere. Hoodie, Masky, Jack?" I nodded, smiled, and Ben and Jeff went back to the factory and settled in. It was getting late, and I was getting really tired. I laid down into the sleeping bag, with Jeff laying down with me, putting his arms around me. Softly we fell to sleep.